The film opens in space with the starship Avalon on autopilot making a beeline for the settlement universe of Estate 2 during a mass departure of Earth's populace. The group and the 5,000 travelers are all in hibernation cases for the 120-year venture. It is 30 years into the excursion. The boat goes through a meteor tempest, and power is redirected to the forward safeguards. Then, at that point, the boat crashes into a huge meteor and the power squints. High alert screens come on in the control region. Then rapidly return to ordinary. Something awful has occurred. Jim Preston, a mechanical specialist, awakens in his unit with a happy PC voice letting him know that soon they will show up at Property 2. He is informed that feeling confounded and feeble subsequent to being in hibernation is typical. The wristband on his arm is filtered, and the PC drives him to his lodge where he dozes. The following day he awakens, attempts to choose what to wear while meeting individual travelers, then, at that point, advances toward a cafeteria where he is the one to focus on. He goes to a direction meeting about existence as a pioneer on Estate, yet he is the final straggler. The lively PC-created teacher can't comprehend his inquiry regarding the reason why no other person is there. Jim goes to the primary concourse and gets no assistance from the data booth. He finds an office where he can make an impression on the Estate organization, that he is cautioned will be costly. He communicates something specific making sense of he is the only one alert and needs assistance. Then figures out it will be 15 years before anybody on Earth accepts his message. He is all alone. Jim tracks down manuals for all the boat gear. He concentrates on the manual on the hibernation units yet can't figure out how to kick it off again once the individual has awakened. He can't get into the region where the team units are to attempt to wake anybody for help, and he can't get into the order region. His wristband doesn't give him the legitimate freedom. Jim finds an android barman named Arthur who he can converse with, yet the android is customized to administer barman guidance. As in the event that you could do without where you are, change things. Jim is a general class traveler with an essential lodge, and he breaks into a suite with more pleasant conveniences. A year passes as Jim utilizes the boat's diversion offices, yet without others, he turns out to be all the more frantically forlorn. He goes to an area where travelers can get into a spacesuit and go outside while securely fastened to the boat. Jim examines self-destruction by opening the isolated space without a spacesuit, yet stops himself and runs into the unit region. He trips close to a unit with a delightful lady inside, Aurora Path. He concentrates on her traveler profile she had recorded before the boat headed out. She is a writer and is heading out to residence to have an experience and find out about why individuals decide to be a settler. He peruses her accounts and thinks she is great. He grapples with himself about awakening her, realizing that it will destine her to pass on the boat. However, he can't stand the seclusion following a year alone. So he physically makes her unit wake her up, stowing away before she can see him. A similar happy PC program awakens Aurora and leads her to her lodge to rest. Aurora awakens the following day alone and meanders to the fantastic concourse where she meets Jim. He comes clean with her about how long he has been conscious. Yet he doesn't tell her that he awakened her. He has asked Arthur the android barman not to let Aurora know what he has done, and Arthur concurs. Aurora and Jim talk day to day, examine what can be attempted to fix the units. Aurora swims, runs, and starts to think of her story. She inquires as to why Jim left planet Earth, and he says he jumps at the chance to make things and fix things, and on the planet, things get supplanted when they break and are not fixed. He needs to reside in a house he fabricates himself. Her arrangement was to go to the state, spend a year there conversing with pioneers about why they left Earth, then, at that point, return to Earth. Aurora is a gold-class traveler and utilizes her status to obtain more intricate breakfast feasts than his standard leeway qualifies him for. After some season of getting to know one another, Jim asks Aurora out on the town and she acknowledges. After they eat, he brings her into the spacesuit room, and there are 2 suits and the 2 of them get dressed and head outside. Returning inside, Aurora is energized, and they go into Jim's lodge and have intercourse. They are cheerful, have their everyday practice of activity, watching the stars, exploiting the boat's diversion and eatery scenes. 1 more year passes, and it's Aurora's birthday, and Jim plans a unique surprise. He made a ring for her. Going into the bar, Aurora lets Arthur know that she and Jim have no insider facts and Jim concurs, not understanding that Arthur deciphers this as implying that Jim has let Aurora know that he awakened her. Jim ventures into the men's room, and Arthur lets Aurora know what Jim's decent decision to pick her to awaken. Aurora is crushed and irate, and advises Jim to avoid her. One evening, she enters his lodge while he's dozing, and attacks him with her clenched hands. While she's running, Jim utilizes a boat's radio to attempt to account for himself, yet Aurora shouts that Jim ended her life. While this is all going on, the control room is all the more regularly getting alarms of framework disappointments, more after some time. Jim and Aurora have seen little things like the cleaning robots having framework disappointments. It's currently a long time since the meteor crash. At some point, Gus Mancuso awakens and shows up on the concourse. He is a deck group boss and has gotten up right on time. Hibernation cases have never fizzled, and he makes sense of that something major is off base. His wristband gets them into the war room, where they find that the boat's programmed diagnostics have fizzled and they need to physically take a look at each deck. While Gus runs tests before this should be possible, there is a significant gravity disappointment and Aurora nearly suffocates while in the pool. Gus finds that there have been flowing disappointments, and the PC can make a course of events that shows the primary disappointment was 2 years prior. Gus establishes that the initial not many disappointments made power redirections attempt and once again adjust the heap. However, the heap turned out to be excessively weighty, causing an ever-increasing number of disappointments. The entire boat is at risk for turning out to be dead in space, which will destine the whole group and travelers. The region originally impacted was in the principal motor region, yet they should do a manual examination to tell where. Right now, Gus breakdowns, and Jim and Aurora take him to the clinic and put him in the clinical auto-demonstrative scanner. There are numerous putrefaction all through his body and passing is unavoidable, as a result of the breaking down hibernation case. He puts on his uniform and gets ready to pass on, and gives Jim and Aurora his wristband, so they can get to the region of the boat they need to go to fix things. In designing, Jim and Aurora find an opening made by a shooting star that goes through a few basic regions. At the point when they open one entryway, Aurora is nearly sucked out in view of an opening through the frame. She hinders it with a tablet Jim pushes to her, and Jim utilizes a fluid sealant to additional seal to the opening. The region compresses and they then, at that point, gain proficiency with the combination motor exhaust must be physically vented. The manual supersede won't work. Jim needs to get into a spacesuit and go outside to fix it. He winds up going into the exhaust entry to open a fold. However, it won't remain open, except if Jim holds it open so the manual vent will work. Presently frantic not to lose Jim, Aurora contends with him over the radio, yet she pulls the switch. Jim is pushed out, his tie breaks, and there is an opening in his suit. He tells Aurora farewell. She hurries to get into a spacesuit herself and goes to search for him. She recovers Jim by snatching his tie, however when they get inside, he is lethargic. She hauls him to the clinic, and the auto doc says Jim is dead. Aurora utilizes Gus's wristband and his supersede code to get the machine to revive Jim, and it works. He is alive, and she is feeling better and excited. Afterward, things are back to typical on the boat. Jim chips away at the auto doc and tells Aurora he found that utilizing the order supersede he could return her to hibernation in the hospital. However, he would be distant from everyone else once more. Acknowledging she could at absolutely no point ever see Jim in the future, Aurora decides to remain conscious with him and make an existence with him on the boat, together. He gives her the improvised wedding band he made before, which she acknowledges, after 88 years. It's the finish of the journey, and the skipper and team conscious and come to the fantastic concourse to find there is a tremendous tree, bunches of flowering plants and vegetation, birds flying, and a lodge that could have Jim and Aurora's grandkids in it. Aurora's voiceover is perusing her story to the travelers, making sense of how they made a decent life where they were.